saying to yourself, damn, what is going on here?
They basically pulled her off the game for racism. You're too much of a bigot to call Caitlin Clark games. We're pulling you off the game. What is this woman doing?
This is bad. This is very, very bad.
Y'all should be thanking that girl for getting y'all ass private charters, all the money and visibility she bringing to the WNBA.
Caitlin Clark's rookie year in the WNBA was nothing short of extraordinary.
WNBA record 19 assists.
But behind all the praise, the attention, and the undeniable talent, there was another narrative brewing.
Point, continue to be myself, and I think a lot of good will come from that.
Has to go, because it's not the Fever fans. It's not Caitlin fans. That is a large group of people. Let's stick with the Fever for a second. And I will shout out Caitlin for making that point. Like, these aren't fans, these are trolls. Racism has been impacting the WNBA well before this year. This is not a new thing. Sure. And in that way, I do think Caitlin's being used as a pawn.
In this video, we'll explore how some WNBA players began to suggest that Caitlin Clark's success was fueled by racial bias. We'll dive into the moments she was bullied, left off USA basketball, and how the league suffered after she left the playoffs, and let you see what is truly behind the bullying in the WNBA.
And even though, I'm dead, Caitlin's doing it very subtly, if at all. Maybe it's all unintentional. And I saw that Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe were talking about this, and they're all trying to frame this, the Caitlin Clark deal.
Caitlin Clark's entry into the WNBA wasn't met with universal acclaim, and even then, there was a seemingly innocent understanding that what she was doing was impressive, but doubly so being a white girl playing in Iowa. And being more interesting than the girls playing at the powerhouse of a school, like LSU. It wasn't until the WNBA A Difference that shined a light on the WNBA's larger problem.
Let's just say the ratings aren't the same with Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever now eliminated. 1,000 viewers was down nearly 50%.
Despite her incredible talent, there were rumblings from certain players who didn't appreciate the media frenzy around her.
Asia Wilson, 28 years old, 1,000 points in the regular season. Why is that not the biggest story out at the moment? Exactly. Why are we talking about Caitlin Clark?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts. But the first one is you offered the contract to a player who's not yet even in the WNBA. Big Three does not happen during overseas season.
Other players coming in, right? So people say, dang, like he or she's killing them. But you have a 25-year-old playing against you should be killing them. Because you've been doing it a lot longer than they have. Clark right now probably takes about 40 shots a game.
These frustrations often spilled over onto the court, where Clark was subject to aggressive fouls, taunting, and some would say, outright bullying.
Coming to the forefront, several seniors.
The crowd howling here.
And some velocity to it.
One of the most notable examples came in a game against the Las Vegas Aces.
Gray being guarded by Clark, and a foul is called. Gray got a step.
Clark had been tearing up the league with her deep threes and flashy plays. But in this game, after drilling a logo shot, Clark found herself on the receiving end of a particularly hard foul from a veteran player. The foul seemed excessive, and Clark looked visibly shaken as she hit the floor. The foul wasn't just about basketball, it felt personal. Fans on social media quickly pointed out that this kind of treatment wasn't something other rookies in the league were dealing with. Clark was playing with a target on her back, and it was clear that some players were determined to make her life difficult. As Clark's star continued to rise, some players began to openly question why she was receiving so much attention.
Criticism is often very one-sided. Caitlin Clark talks her shit. Caitlin Clark is demonstrative. Caitlin Clark, people aren't bothered by that. People aren't bothered by it because they're caught up in the narrative of a kind soul from the great state of Iowa representing middle America. So they put all these sort of, what happens in these sports race wars is everybody projects their own shit on the people coming.
So for people to come at me and say that I made those comments because I'm a racist, like, first of all, black people can't be racist.
And this wasn't just about basketball, it was about race. In post-game interviews and social media posts, players hinted that Clark's success and media coverage might be influenced by her being white.
Caitlin Give her her flowers. She's done stuff that no man or woman, black or white, has ever done in college basketball. Give that woman her flowers.
And she was clarifying comments that she made.
Caitlin Clark runs into a screen. People are like, oh my gosh, these players they're going crazy, being super aggressive towards her. So
this kind of rhetoric spread quickly. Some players felt that the WNBA, its fans, and the media were elevating Caitlin Clark in ways they hadn't for other black players.
Us as black women, Paige reminds me a lot of dudes. Like, usually it's not really about me. And she knows how her privilege has gotten her to that point. And also, like, she's good at basketball, obviously. But, like, she understands her privilege and like, pushes her over the top in a sense.
Even if those players had comparable or better stats, Clark wasn't just facing criticism in the media. On the court, things were getting ugly too. Throughout her rookie season, Clark was subject to repeated incidents of bullying. From veterans refusing to shake her hand after games, to unnecessary trash talk, and even moments of isolation from her teammates during warm-ups.
Yeah, it's definitely upsetting. I don't think nobody in our league should be facing any sort of racism, hurtful, disrespectful, hateful comments and threats. Those aren't fans, those are trolls, and it's a real disservice to the people in our league, the organization, the WNBA.
One particularly telling moment came when Clark attempted to shake hands with an opposing player.
The largest crowd ever! Gave it a great effort, but they fall 2 points short.
After a hard-fought game, only to be blatantly ignored. The snub was noticed by fans and quickly became a viral moment on social media. To some, this was just part of the game. But to others, it was clear that Clark's treatment was different, even hostile. But the bullying and backlash weren't just limited to WNBA games. Caitlin Clark's exclusion from the USA basketball roster was perhaps the most shocking snub of all.
According to a report from Christine Brennan of USA Today, 2 sources indicated that there was concern over how Clark's fans would react to her not getting much playing time in the Olympics.
No.
You think it was the wrong decision?
Wrong decision.
Why do you think it was the wrong decision then?
Stars. Obumike knocks down the elbow jumper.
Despite her success in college and an incredible rookie season in the WNBA, Clark wasn't invited to join the national team. Her numbers alone should have made her a lock for the team, but she was left off the roster in favor of players with arguably less impressive stats.
Caitlin Clark not making the Olympic team despite leading all rookies in points.
Yeah, obviously broken news. I've got to look at the roster to see who they picked to be on the team, but I would imagine they leaned on veterans. And while Caitlin has had an incredible season,
many speculated that the decision was political or rooted in the racial tension surrounding her. Others felt it was a deliberate move to sideline Clark's influence, both on and off the court.
Caitlin Clark, WNBA Rookie of the Month. Packing arenas while averaging 17 and 6 assists. That's not enough to make the Olympic roster.
Well, this is not a popularity contest, and women's basketball is actually rated decently well during the Olympics, so they're not starting from scratch. When you talk about this U.S. Olympic team, it is one of the hardest teams to make in all of sports.
But the fact that the ratings from Caitlin Clark's series to these series fell off a cliff, it should surprise no one.
I'm going to go out there, and I'm going to try to be the best. I get y'all saying best player in the world. That's great. It looks great. But I want to be the best person. I want to be the best teammate.
And then it happened. Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever were eliminated from the playoffs.
2 of the premier teams in the league drew an audience of 929,000, according to ESPN. The numbers were nowhere near what they were with Caitlin Clark.
What followed was a nightmare for the WNBA. Before her elimination, the WNBA was riding high.
Caitlin Clark? The face of your entire league, you left off this promotional graphic again.
Games featuring Clark were some of the most watched of the season. Attendance was up, merchandise sales were through the roof, and social media buzz was at an all-time high.
It's Caitlin Clark. We all know that. They are now seeing that the Clark effect is living up to the hype.
Caitlin Clark.
But after Clark's early playoff exit, the WNBA saw an immediate drop in viewership.
I'm going to miss Caitlin Clark. Hopefully I don't see her on the basketball court again until April, until next WNBA season.
Fans who had tuned in to watch her play seemingly disappeared. Attendance at playoff games plummeted. The league lost its biggest draw and began bleeding money.
Ratings for Game 1 have got to be disappointing for Kat Engelbert and the WNBA front office this season, where Caitlin Clark drew more than 1.8 million viewers.
In fact, games that should have been marquee matchups were played in front of half-empty arenas. Ratings fell by over 80%, and suddenly the league was facing a very real crisis. Without Caitlin Clark, it seemed they couldn't keep fans' attention. As the season came to a close, some players began to speak out more openly about their frustrations with Clark's rise to stardom. In interviews, a few WNBA players suggested that the attention Clark was receiving was due to her race, rather than her on-court abilities. One player remarked, "We've been doing this for years, but the media acts like Caitlin invented deep threes and flashy passes. It's because she's white. That's why they love her."
They don't have to pay us more in order for us to be here. And I think I didn't express that when I first talked about prioritization, you know. So it's still not enough for us international players to want to stay here. And that's a choice of the players. If I make a choice to make more money, whatever, and then...
This sentiment was shared by others who felt that the media's focus on Clark was taking away from the accomplishments of black players who had been performing at a high level for years. Analyst.
League versus Caitlin Clark, and that is just absolutely false. It is unfair to the women.
It's no secret that there's a divide forming in the WNBA. Some players feel that Caitlin is getting all the attention, while their own hard work is being overshadowed. And honestly, the league's marketing strategy hasn't helped ease those tensions.
Many black women inside the WNBA are resentful that this white woman came in and is getting all this attention.
However, while some players were criticizing Clark, prominent figures in the media rushed to her defense.
Caitlin Clark is box office. She's doing this. And instead of giving her credit, y'all tried to make it about, oh, y'all poo-pooing the old guard. Y'all never talked about the old guard like this.
If Caitlin Clark is the quote-unquote savior, if she's the golden girl, milk it.
These ladies, they cannot have this Caitlin Clark thing up any worse if they tried.
Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp, and Charles Barkley all stepped in to call out the notion that Clark's success was about race. Stephen A. Smith. Let's get one thing straight. Caitlin Clark is a superstar because of what she does on the court, period. Race has nothing to do with it. If you can ball, you can ball. And that's what she's doing.
As a bona fide superstar on your level. And last night, that performance by Caitlin Clark, prime time, national television, to show up against that team in the fashion that she did.
Shannon Sharp echoed similar sentiments, saying that while the conversation around race in sports is important, in this case, it was unfair to diminish Clark's talent.
She received 66 of the 67 votes from the panel. This draft class, 2024, led by Caitlin Clark. It's going to be one. It's going to be one. They're going to remember this.
As we look ahead to next season, the question remains, will Caitlin Clark continue to be a target of racial bias and bullying in the WNBA? And can the league survive without her star power? With the ratings and attendance clearly tied to her presence, the WNBA faces a critical challenge. Can they build a league that doesn't rely solely on one player? And how will the racial dynamics between Clark and her peers continue to shape the narrative? Asterisk. One thing's for sure, Caitlin Clark's story is far from over.